Hello and welcome everyone to our latest webinar. Today's theme is overcoming common SPL formatting issues. This will revolve around SPL authoring topics in A4L, yet many of the topics are also applicable to authoring XML PMs for Health Canada using A4L. I'm Amanpreet Kant, IFRI's Regulatory Services Team Lead. My colleagues Michaela Mero and Ian Tan will be giving today's presentation. And there's lots of information to cover, and we'll have a Q&A session to follow. As always, this presentation is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to all registered attendees. I know that many of you have already attended some of our webinars in the past. Thank you for your continued interest. Before we dive in, I just want to go over a bit housekeeping. So during the webinar, all mics are muted except for the presenters. If you experience an echo, please check that your mic is muted in the WebEx window. The microphone icon should be red and have a cross through it. And if echo persists and you're using a phone for your audio, please mute all audio devices on your computer. If time allows, at the end of the presentation, we will do our best to answer your questions. And if you have a question at any point during the webinar, please type your question in the chat panel. To send a message in the chat, click on the chat button. Please make sure that you keep the Everyone tab selected in the chat panel. Alternatively, you could also choose the Direct tab and select the I4I option, which is the host, to send a question privately. Enter your question in the text area and then press Enter. If you don't see the chat button, please click the View menu and then select the Show Meeting Controls option. Again, we will do our best to answer all the questions that we get. If we cannot answer the question during the Q&A today, we will contact you with a follow-up. And now I'd like to pass things over to Michaela.
Thank you, Amin. So on the agenda for today, I'll start us off with a look at section management, adding cross-references, spacing issues, and creating indented lists. I'll then pass things over to Ian to review adding and removing recent major changes, inserting and deleting highlights, replicating nested tables, and editing SetIDs. So let's get things started. In this section, we'll be looking at the correct way of managing sections in an SPL Content of Labeling document. Specifically, we will be looking at how to change the nesting of a section and also how to create subsections using A4L's Add Markup feature. Also, we will cover the Convert from Word feature. In this example, we need to create section 8.6, which must come directly after section 8.5. In order to do this, we open the Manage Sections dialog, select section 8.5, and click the Insert Section button. In the Insert Section dialog, we have the option to insert a section as a subsection or a next section, which is one that follows the current selection. In this case, the subsection radio button is selected, and instead of selecting the next section radio button, we will click Insert Section. The new section is created. However, we can see that it is a subsection of section 8.5 instead of a section that comes after 8.5. We can still add our heading text and make it look like a proper section 8.6. If we check the section level in the A4L ribbon, we can see that our new section is a level 3 section instead of a level 2. To fix this error, we open the Manage Sections dialog, select the section, and click the left arrow button to promote it to a higher section, which would be a level 2 in this case. Correct nesting can be seen in the Manage Sections dialog. And we can see that the section is correctly nested as a Level 2 heading, and that the heading uses the correct heading style in the Styles pane. Now let's look at how to automatically create subsections from pasted content using the Add Markup feature. We want to add a new subsection within the Adverse Reactions. In the Manage Sections dialog, we can see that Adverse Reactions has 3 subsections. We will add a subsection between the Adverse Reactions in Pediatric Patients subsection and the Adverse Laboratory Changes subsection. We paste in the content from our new Post-Marketing Adverse Event section, and it is pasted as body text. The style pane shows that the text is in the normal style. Now let's convert this pasted text into a structured section. So first we will place the cursor in what will be the section heading. Select Level 2, and we have just applied the proper formatting to the heading. This can be verified in the Styles pane, and we can see that our text is a heading 2. To convert the new text to a proper subsection, place the cursor within it and click Add Markup. A message indicates that a new structured section has been created, and you can easily see that it is a new section within the document. If we check the Manage Sections dialog, we can see that our new section has been properly created and nested as a subsection inside of Section 6. Now, Section 6 has 4 subsections. While creating a whole new SPL in A4L might seem like a daunting task, A4L makes it a really simple process with the Convert from Word feature. To use the Convert from Word feature, simply copy all of the sections from your source document. For a PLR document, this would be sections 1 through 17. Be sure that your source document has the correct formatting and heading styles applied before beginning this process. In A4L, paste the copy text into the Convert from Word section where it says, click here and paste the Convert Existing Word document. Be sure to paste using the Ctrl-V shortcut or use the default Keep Source Formatting paste option. This will ensure that the styles are retained from your source document and that the blue italic text from this section won't be used as the default. Confirm that the pasted text still has heading paragraph styles. To structure this pasted text into the proper sections and subsections, click Add Markup. A dialog will ask whether you want to remove existing sections. Unless the label already has content that you would like to retain, you can click Yes. The new sections and subsections are now created as shown in the Manage Sections dialog. Let's now move on to adding cross-references. So cross-references can be inserted in a number of different ways, and we find that using hyperlinks for cross-references works the best. To insert a cross-reference to a section using a hyperlink, select the text to apply the cross-reference to. Then click Links and select Hyperlinks. In the Insert Hyperlink dialog, select Place in this document in the left-hand panel. This then displays all of the section headings in the file. Select the heading to add the link to, and click OK. And now we can see that the text contains the link. Note that you can also use the Ctrl-K shortcut to display the Insert Hyperlink dialog. Sometimes you may find that spaces in the A4L document are missing when you preview the document in the FDA style sheet. Let's look at why this happens and how you can fix it. Here's an example. In this file, in A4L, you can see that between these two bolded words is a space. However, when you preview this same file in the FDA style sheet, the space is no longer there. This can happen when you have two or more words that are bold, italic, or underlined, but the space between them is not. It can also happen in the opposite way, where a space between the words is formatted with bold, italic, or underline, but the words are not. Browsers automatically remove extra spaces when they display XML or HTML files. The space is still in the SPL file, it just doesn't appear like that on the screen. In this example, the two words are bolded, but the space between them is not. To fix this issue, you would select the space and apply bold formatting. You can then verify that the space is present by previewing the file in the style sheet. An SPL label authoring issue that we are often asked about is why extra spaces do not appear within the text of the published XML document, even though they were added in A4L, and they are clearly visible when the label is opened in Word. Let's take a look and see how extra spaces can be included. We have our SPL, and we want to put extra spaces between the container text and the strength, and also between the strength and the NDC code for each line. We can use the spacebar to add the required extra spaces, and in Word it appears good. We can even reveal the formatting symbols, which shows small black dots to indicate the spaces. However, when we preview the label, the extra spaces are no longer there. This is because the underlying XML structure of the document doesn't allow multiple regular spaces using the spacebar. A special key combination is required to enter a non-breaking space that the XML will allow. So let's reset our document back to before we added the spaces with the spacebar, and we will leave the formatting symbols revealed. This time, we'll use the keyboard key combination Control-Shift Spacebar. When we do this, we get hollow circle symbols instead of the small black dots. And now you can see that when we preview the label, the spaces are retained in the XML structure. Another common issue occurs when creating indented lists. Sometimes indented sublists lose their indentation when previewed in the FDA style sheet. Let's look at an example and how to fix it. In the Word document shown here, the list items appear to have the correct indentation. However, when the document is previewed in the FDA style sheets, the bullets display incorrectly. The indentation for the sublists is missing. Let's go over the solution to this issue. Let's go back to our A4L Word document and select the entire list. We need to clear the formatting that is causing this issue, so we open the Styles pane from the Home tab and click Clear All in the Styles pane. This is usually the first option. After you do this, all formatting in the list is cleared, and the list has the normal style. Now we need to reapply the bullets. The bulleted list, numbered list, and multi-level list buttons are all in the Home tab. You can also use the Promote button or the Demote one level button. In this example, we need to click the bulleted list button and then click Demote one level to indent the sublist items. And when the label is previewed using the FDA style sheet, the list is displayed with proper formatting. I'm now going to pass things on to my co-host, Ian. While we switch presenters, I would like to remind everyone that if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat panel.
Thank you, Michaela, and hello, everyone. Now let's take a look at some common formatting concerns with recent major changes. Let's look at how to apply inline markup. The first step is to select the text you need to apply your recent major change or emphasis markup to. Then click the inline markup button. This is where incorrectly chosen markup can cause issues. If you choose emphasis only, or if you choose recent major changes and emphasis together. The resulting markup has blue highlighting, which means that only emphasis markup has been applied to the text. This can be further confirmed when we preview the SPL with the FDA style sheet in a web browser. When there is a recent major change markup in a document, a vertical line would be shown here. But because the markup that was applied was not for recent major changes, no vertical line is present. So let's go back to before we applied the incorrect markup to apply the correct markup. Once again, our text is highlighted. This time, I also want to point out that there are some text within the highlighted text that has italics applied. We will again click the inline markup button. However, this time we will make sure that we have the recent major change selected before we click apply. Ensure that the box is checked and that the recent major change option is highlighted in blue. The resulting markup in our A4L document has pink text, which means that the recent major changes markup has been applied to the text. But remember the italics we had on some of the text earlier? This has been removed during the markup process and will therefore be needed to be added back manually. With the recent major change markup correctly applied, we can now see vertical line that indicates this when our SPL is viewed using the FDA's style sheet. Now let's take a look at how to remove inline markups. We'll first go back to our SPL and highlight the recent major change markup text that we want to remove from the markup. We'll then click on the inline markup button. In the inline markup dialog, we want to select the type of formatting to remove. As the text we've highlighted has recent major change markup applied, that's the markup we will select in the dialog. Then we click remove. The result is that the recent major change markup has been removed from the selected text. Next, we know that the recent major changes to the paragraph and content within the table are displayed in the style sheet as a vertical change bar line in the left margin. With list items, however, the vertical change bar is missing. So how can you have the vertical change bar displayed in the style sheet for the list items? You can see an example of the text markup as a recent major change in A4L. This changed text also includes a list. However, in the style sheet view, the paragraph have a vertical change bar on the left, but the list items don't. This does not mean that the list is missing from the recent major change markup, as it's still present in the XML coding, and the FDA will know that this is included in the recent major change markup. However, if you still like for the style sheet to display the vertical border on the list, there is a workaround. Instead of using the list style with automatic bulleting, you can manually insert a bullet symbol at the beginning of each list item. You can insert a non-breaking space before and after the bullet symbol using the Control, Shift, and Spacebar keyboard combination to indent and mimic the list style spacing. Repeat this for all other list items. When you preview this file in the style sheet, the recent major change vertical bar will be visible because the bullets is actually part of the paragraph. Next, let's take a look at some common concerns with highlights. How can you add, delete, or edit highlight sections and their phrases easily? Highlights can be inserted for sections 1 through 8 in labels that follow the physician's labeling rule or the PLR format. Let's take a look at how to correctly insert and delete highlights. To insert a highlight in an A4L document, put your cursor in the section to be highlighted. Then click the highlight excerpt, followed by the Add Highlight button on the A4L ribbon. An editable highlight section is inserted within the content, making it easy for you to author your highlighted text. This is also where the FDA style sheet generates the highlight section content from. To insert highlights into all sections that are allowed at once, click on the Highlight Excerpt button, followed by the Highlight All Sections button. This will insert highlights in all sections that are allowed to have highlights. At the top of your PLR file, the highlights are displayed as they are in the style sheet. However, they are read-only at this location and cannot be edited. This highlighted text is taken from the content you've entered as highlights within each section. You can refresh the view of the highlight summary at the top of the page using the Gather All Highlights button in the SPL menu. To delete a highlight, put your cursor within the highlight to delete and select Delete Highlight from the Highlight Excerpt drop-down menu. Now let's look at how to add the FDA-approved patient labeling phrase to the bottom right of the highlight section. The display of this phrase is triggered by having the patient package insert section presently directly after section 17. Initially, this phrase is missing because the patient package insert section itself is not present in the document. To insert this section, go to section 17 of your SPL working document and put your cursor within it. Then click the Manage section in the A4L tab. In the Manage section dialog, click on the Insert Section button. Then click on Next Section and choose the Patient Package Insert section from the menu. Alternatively, depending on what was approved by the FDA, you may need to choose Medication Guide from the Insert Section dialog instead. Once you select the appropriate section that suits your SPL that you're working on, click on the Insert Section button. The section is inserted into the SPL document directly after section 17. When you preview the SPL after having inserted the patient package insert section, you'll see the FDA-approved patient labeling phrase. Whereas if you inserted the medication guide section, you'll see the medication guide phrase. Another issue you could face regarding phrases at the end of the highlight section is that you might need to change the phrase from an FDA-approved patient labeling to the medication guide or vice versa. The solution to this issue is to change the section type using the Edit Section Type dialog, and this is launched by clicking the Edit Section Type button at the A4L tab. Select the section you want to change to. In this case, we want to change the phrase medication guide to FDA-approved patient labeling, so we select the patient package insert. Then we click on the Apply Selected Type and click Yes in the message that appears. Now the medication guide section has been replaced with patient package insert section, and you will have the correct phrase in your highlight section. Let's now take a look at table formatting and how to correctly make them appear nested. Tables are used mainly to organize and display data in Word documents, but sometimes they are used to lay out the content to make it look a certain way. In some cases, tables are used within tables for text layout. However, the SPL files do not allow tables within tables. In this example, we have a medication guide table. There is a table within the medication guide table that holds bulleted list items in 2 columns. This works well in plain Word document and looks fine when open in A4L. However, when you preview the label in the FDA style sheet, the content of the inner table is missing. This is because the FDA style sheet does not support tables within tables. To work around this issue, you will need to include an inner table row as part of the main table. First, we insert 2 new rows in the main table above or below the inner table. The first row will hold the content that is before the inner table, and the second row is where the inner table content will go. Split the second row into the number of columns of your inner table. In this case, the inner table has 2 columns, one for each column of the bulleted list. Copy the content of the inner table into the new cells, and copy the other content into the row above it. Be sure to delete the inner table and the other content that you copy to your new rows so that your content is not duplicated. Now you can format your new table rows to match the main table by removing or changing the borders. And because all the content is now in one table, when you preview it in the style sheet, all content is displayed. Finally, another concern is editing the SetID manually. One instance when you may need to edit an SPL's label SetID is if you have updated an old version of the product label to a new version and you have incorrectly published it. During the publishing process, you are asked if this is the first version of the label being sent to the FDA. If you had clicked yes, then a new SetID is generated for the document, instead of using the SetID that has already been submitted in the earlier part of the SPL's life. Note that if an updated SPL is submitted with the wrong SetID, the FDA will reject the submission. To fix this, you will need to find the SetID of the last submitted SPL. To locate this, open your most recently submitted XML file using the FDA style sheet and scroll to the end where you will see the SetID listed when you hover your mouse over the revised date. Let's keep track of the last digits of the SetID to demonstrate this discrepancy. To keep track, listing SetID in a box on the bottom right of the slide. Open the new version of the SPL label that has the missing or wrong SetID. Click on the content at the beginning of the document, then click on the root content control. In this case, the root content control is the tab above the content that says PLR4. Then click the A4 ribbon, followed by the Attributes button. In the Attributes dialog, you can see that the SetID is incorrect. The ending digits do not match this existing submitted labels as SetID we're keeping track of at the bottom right of the slide. We'll need to modify the SetID in A4L to match the existing ID. In the SetID field, delete the incorrect SetID and paste the correct SetID that you've copied from the XML when you viewed the FDA style sheet. Then click OK. When you save the document, the SetID you just modified will be saved. Now when you publish this updated version of the label, it will have the correct SetID in it.
Thank you, Ian and Michaela. So we are now ready to move on to the Q&A portion of our session. And if you haven't already sent in your questions, then please feel free to do so now using the WebEx chat panel. You can also send a direct message by selecting I4I, the host, in the options. And we'll give everyone a couple of minutes to gather the questions, and then we'll be back to answer them. All right, so we have now approached at the end of our session. If we didn't get to your question, we will send you an email with the answer. But if you have any additional questions that you didn't get to ask today, please feel free to contact our I4I support team at support@i4i.com. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We hope you found it helpful. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.